Welcome back to the Frith Guild podcast. Today we're diving into chapters 21 through 25 of Master Arcanist. Before we get into that, we want to mention that 24-Hour Warlock will be releasing on April the 8th. Just a reminder that DragonCon 2025 is coming up and nominations are available to put in for. So if you have not nominated already, put in your nominations now. With these chapters, they're packed with unforgettable moments. Zaxis grapples with his new role as a Fenris Wolf Arcanist, Volke channels his inner Steve Irwin to rescue the Basilisks, and our crew navigates citywide magic. Regal plots and a menagerie filled with creatures that tug at the heart. And who doesn't love a shirtless Zaxis at the breakfast table? Stick around for all the action, magic, and teamwork that brings this world to life. Don't forget to nominate Labyrinth Arcanist for the DragonCon of 2025 for Best Fantasy Novel.
Welcome back to the Frith Guild podcast. I'm your host, Eric.
And I'm co-host, Scott.
And today we're going over chapters 21 through 25 of Master Arcanist. And before we get into today's chapters, I do want to remind you that we have the links for the Frith Chronicles Wiki, along with the Capital Station Discord server down below. With that, we'll get into chapters today.
Chapter 21 is Citywide Magic. This opens up, and Zaxis is really struggling to change his mindset from being like the Fenris Wolf Arcanist and not the Phoenix Arcanist. I don't blame him. It's a heck of a turnaround, and there's so much other stuff going around that you don't really have any time to process it, which makes it tough. He's just running on adrenaline at this point and kind of hoping that things click before he really needs them to. They end up heading into the city with the queen, and they have this discussion about, is Zaxis wise? Was the hunter wise? And Vorn's like, well, he's really more of a strategic and like a good fighter. But yeah, sure, Zaxis is wise. And
yeah,
not a lot of confidence there. But I do like his little yeah, sure, we'll try and build up your confidence here a little bit. Bjorn gives them a little insight into kind of the level of magic and says that, Terracona's ability to control the land is expansive, and it's really only going to be limited by what Volke is able to either think up on his own or what Volke is scared to do. So they have this conversation, and he essentially teaches Volke about his magic and says, you didn't have to go fight the Basilisks. Instead, what you could do is just collapse the tunnels to force the Basilisks to make their way out of the city. And then while you're doing that, you could honestly sense where there's structural issues and then solidify those with stone so as not to collapse the whole city. Completely mind blown. Volke's like, you mean I didn't have to fight two terrible killing machines?
Like, wait, where was this before?
There is also a comment of Bjorn has these chains dangling off of him, and they have these runes on them, and Volke notices them and kind of makes a comment of, hey, those are very similar to the runes that are on Terracona's tongue. So no real information here, but it seems kind of coincidental that two of the god creatures have these runes. So interested to kind of see where that ends up leading, if it goes anywhere. Volke does sit down and spends hours and hours and hours with his magic, and is able to route the Basilisks to the surface safely. And he's even able to tell as they're coming up, like, oh, these ones are calm. There's one kind of feisty one that they got to be worried about. So really, really big step in terms of using his magic, both to control as well as in the tremor sense.
And this takes us into chapter 22, A New Morning. Again, Volke is Steve Irwin here. Like, he wants to make sure these basilisks are safe, they get out of the tunnels okay, and basically he is going through and repairing them everything as he goes. He does find that he's getting a very good control over his magic with the earth manipulation. This is a monumental ability for Volke to be able to have. Hence why the Autarch was so adamant about bonding with the World Serpent and how much of his plans got ruined because Volke did. And we had 6 basilisks. Unfortunately, one of them, the feistier one, did not want to cooperate. So we were able to get 5 of those 6 out fairly safely. And I think that's a pretty dang solid statistic right there. 5 of 6 had trapped the last one. You know what? You did a good job, Volke. Now, he does ask Terraconda how long he's been working on this, because he's had his eyes closed, focusing and concentrating, and Terraconda's like, yeah, it only took you like 5 hours.
To restructure a whole city, no big deal. Rome wasn't built in a day.
Right, and Volke's like, wait, it was really 5 hours? And Terraconda's like, yes. It was a very long 5 hours, too. And basically, Volke is still trying to get his magical muscles up to where he should be, and he basically maxed himself out without realizing it. And again, we have this moment with Terraconda of, hey, since there's nobody else around, I want you to meet my dryad, please. He encircles Volke completely, wraps himself around Volke, and foil comes out. And again, her description of her eyes being open flowers rather than eyes like Terraconda or we have is just absolutely amazing. I love this dryad. I don't know why. I want to meet her. So as things are getting wrapped up with Volke meeting foil, Terraconda senses Guildmaster Strenos come out there, and he basically is like, hey, we kind of need to get going back. The Volke was understanding of what had just happened with Coco, and with Coco being a white will-o-wisp, as we've discussed previously in the bestiary sections, that they basically are leading their Arcanist to greatness, and yeah, we can take this as that being Coco's mission being complete. We all know that Coco would definitely have been proud of everything that has happened since, and she'd have been happy to know that the tunnels are safe, or the city is getting put back on, and we start heading back off to the university.
Chapter 23 is University Living. Volke wakes up to Niccolin doing Niccolin things and being all Niccolin. And they have this conversation about how everything was handled with the Basilisks. Niccolin essentially tells Volke that he needs to go to therapy, which is a huge win in so many ways. He's really pissed because Rizzles they're essentially magical lures, so they were going to use Niccolin as a lure to get the Basilisks to come out, and he's like, yeah, that's not cool, so you messed up. You should have done everything better sooner. He does go and get kind of the rest of the Frith Guild. They come over, and before they go to Regal Heights, they decide that they're going to have a team breakfast send-off. Zelfrey lets Volke know that they need to make this detour when they go on their trip because he needs a few things that are going to help him deal with Linus. Adelgis has this conversation, and we get a few key pieces of information out of it. One is that Odion's dragon is truly plague form, so again, it happens a lot quicker with the mythical creatures than it does with the Arcanists, so huge kind of concern on that end. We don't really know what's going on with them, but it seems to be going downhill quickly. And then on a more positive note, Adelgis does confirm that his sister, who again lost Arthur. Arthur was revived. She has rebonded with Arthur, so a happy little, family reunite going on there. And it was a nice little heartfelt moment of, Arthur didn't remember who his Arcanist was, but having that connection again, I'm sure they can kind of rekindle their relationship. So super excited for them, and kind of this hopeful reminiscent moment for Volke as well.
In chapter 24, Together Breakfast, we find out the university staff has created a menagerie for all of the creatures that lost their Arcanist, or basically didn't get stolen, kidnapped, whatever you want to call it, by the Second Ascension. So them dastardly Team Rocket schemes didn't happen to go off the whole way. I will say, I don't know why I like the word menagerie so much, even when it's used later on into the the Academy series. But I really like it.
It's a good word.
Yeah, Sorry. We're walking down, and Devlin is just hanging out, pre-gaming, knocking him in that flask back, and he is just really not happy that he doesn't have an airship anymore. Isn't the master of his own journey. Like, I get it. I feel you, man. Like, that's kind of how he feels, and
he got tied down. He used to, be out on the prowl. He's got that reminiscent a little bit as well.
And Volke, I wish I would have wrote it down. Volke says something very vague, kind of like what Devlin has said to Volke before. And he's like, I haven't heard that since my dad. Like, oh crap, that was wise. It kind of like completely changes his opinion, his outlook on things. So we make it into the staff dining room. Everybody's gathering around for breakfast. We got the cool kids with Zaxis and Ilya and Hexa sitting at one end of the table. We got Volke sitting kind of like in the middle of the other end with Zelfrey, and we have Aviana, Adelgis, Fane, everybody. We even get to see Carr sitting down, and the way that he was described was basically the exact same way that he was described when we first met Carr a long time ago back in Coliseum. He was standing outside the dance parlor trying to get Volke to come in. So this is one of those like moments of
the flashbacks.
The flashback of this was him. Now, Volke knows he has to wear an open shirt, basically, so everybody gets to see the cool Guard Arcanist mark on his chest. Zaxis takes it one step further and just be like, I'm going to sit here shirtless. Like, whatever. And I don't feel surprised by this whatsoever.
That's actually typical behavior, so.
Right. Like, why not? He's confident with his body. Eviana is helping with getting everything cooked for breakfast. Eviana kind of comes in with her own quip about not knowing how to cook, and Addie not knowing how to cook.
Some tension.
And they're making oatmeal. Like it's oatmeal, and they're cutting some fruit up. So it's not the most difficult meal in the world here.
No, and they're all trained with weapons. Like, cutting it with a knife should not be an issue. Like, you're trained with a sword.
Right. Like, I mean, hell, Addie could at least use her fire to heat up the water for the oatmeal. Now, as we're sitting here talking and enjoying our breakfast, an interesting question gets brought up by Moonbeam nonetheless, basically saying, would you rather, if you had to choose one, would you kill a human or would you kill a fish? And obviously everybody's going to answer, well, kill a fish. And he's like, what about if you kill all of the fish or one human? Like, well, okay, well, let's pump brakes here a little bit. Maybe not all of the fish. So he's kind of just trying to be like, where's the line at? Where do we say one human life is equivalent to how many fish? And again, this is grander scheme, not necessarily just looking at a fish at face value.
There's a very similar meme with this question, and it's like, you wouldn't swim in a pool with a dead body in it, but you'd swim in the ocean, which probably has a dead body in it. So what's the appropriate volume of water where you would decide it is okay to swim in it with a dead human body in it? But that's all I could think about reading this, is like that same, like, at some point you shift, and where's that point?
Oh my gosh, that's the first. I got to look at that. Look at that up and put it in here. So we do have Karna and Riker that are sitting next to each other. Karna's like, hey, you should try to like change who you are right now. And Riker's like, I don't wanna. She's like, well, really cool fact though, people taste things very differently, and realistically doppelgangers are really the only ones that'll know this. And she says that strawberries typically taste way too sweet for her, whereas when she's eating a strawberry as like Zaxis, strawberries are like barely sweet at all. And again, one of those like cool, nifty little things that she plugs in there that you don't think about, you wouldn't think about, and I appreciate just a random little drop there. Zaxis realizes he needs to learn how to use his magic, and he actually really, really likes the idea of combining his augmentation with his manipulation, or evocation with manipulation, whichever it is. And he goes to Addie and asks to basically learn how she uses her fire and healing. And I really, really wish that she would have been like, okay, I'll teach you, but you have to call me master.
Pulled it right back out. Does bring us to chapter 25, to Regal Heights. As we're having this conversation, we do get Bayou walking in, which is this like cute little moment with Devlin, and she wants to show off her pictures and how well they're drawn. He says they're so beautiful, I could only look at them for a second, which just such a great line. It's just such a cute little moment with her. We don't have a lot of scenes with her, so a nice little add-in on that one. Zelfrey does tell Zaxis to put a shirt on, so this does just like flash back to the Nightmare Arcanist when we just start, and it's like, just put a shirt on. We have, Gravekeeper William is hanging out with Jose. Cool little father-father bonding moment. They do decide that they are going to wrap things up. They're going to get traveling. The Queen is trying to get them before they leave. She essentially wants to keep them in her reach, kind of keep an eye over them. They're trying to sneak off kind of quicker than she can get a hold of them. They break into like these groups. So Zaxis, Volke, Riker, Karna, Hexa, Zelfrey, and Linus are going to go off to Regal Heights ahead. They have Bjorn, they have Terrakana. They can move a lot faster than the rest of the group, and hopefully they can kind of get searching for Vatica. Eventide does give Volke a few books on God Arcanist. It's mostly story fairy tale reading, but a lot of it feels like it's based in some sort of real world story or legend that had happened. So something good for Volke to just be able to kind of learn, this probably came from real things that happened, so these are things to look out for. And then, of course, we have the cute little moment with Terrakana saying, "Can I bring my puppy? I want to bring Foil."
I love when Eventide was talking about these books, that she has friends at Scarn University that pulls these before Queen Ladislava has a chance to, and she kind of was like offering them to Volke, and then as soon as she said that, I feel like Volke's like, mine, I want them.
This never happened.
And with that ends this week's episode of chapters 21 through 25. Next week we'll be picking up for 26 through 30, and then the week following we will have our mid-book interview. And with that, we will catch you guys next week. Scott, did you have anything else you'd like to add with this?
Go vote.
Go vote. Make sure you get your nominations in. We're going to take Shammy all the way this year. All right. Thanks, God, for listening, and we'll catch you next week.